Every election is a reflection of the principle of consent. We choose our representatives in our form of government. J. Eric Wise. Almost 250 years ago, on December 16, 1773, American colonists dressed as Mohawk Indians drummed tea into Boston Harbor, protesting under a rallying cry of "No taxation without representation." We call this the Boston Tea Party. 23 years ago, in May of 2000, Washington, D.C. changed the design of its license plates, replacing the words "discover and celebrate" with "taxation without representation." This memorialized D.C. residents' grievance that they have no voting representatives in Congress. Suffice it to say, the principle of representation is an enduring opinion that is at the heart of what it means to be an American. But like many such opinions that spring from what Abraham Lincoln called, quote, "the mystic chords of memory," end quote, does anyone really know concretely what it means? To understand, perhaps it helps to think about concepts of sovereignty. For the most part, after the end of the Roman Republic, most of Europe was ruled by kings or emperors. They ruled on a religious, revealed, and practical basis known as divine right of kings. Derived from the Bible and history, divine right of kings relied on the authority of Abraham over his children, the authority of anointed kings, beginning with Saul and David, and the authority of Caesar over Rome and its dominions. A single person embodies the sovereign for subjects, and that person's authority comes down from divinely sanctioned anointing, according to hereditary rules and conquest. The Scottish protested the oppressions of the English king, Robert the Bruce. In the Declaration of Arbroath, the Scottish appealed to their own divine right of kings through conquest. Quote, "The Britons they first drove out, the Picts they utterly destroyed, and even though very often assailed by the Norwegians, the Danes, and the English, they took possession of that home with many victories and untold efforts." End quote. Contradictions aside, that was how most of Europe thought about the question of just government. But did this mean they had no representation? To the contrary, when the English nobles at Runnymede in 1215 forced the king to sign the Magna Carta, representation in Parliament became part of the English system of government, though that system remained clearly under the notion of the divine right of kings. The French, whose monarchy was an absolute, had the Estates General, beginning in 1302 AD. The German principalities of the Holy Roman Empire had the Imperial Diet as early as 777 AD. If there is any doubt about the compatibility of divine right of kings and representation, note that the Mayflower Compact, organized to authorize the colonial pilgrims to frame just and equal laws, begins with the identification of the signers as, quote, "the loyal subjects of our dread sovereign Lord King James," end quote. But compatibility is not the same thing as perfection, and at some point after the Protestant Reformation, new ideas about the authority of men over their conscience and the concept of the priesthood of every believer led to new ideas about the authority of men over their own government. In Connecticut in the 1600s, the Reverend Thomas Hooker established in his sermons consent on the basis of government rather than divine right of kings. Quote, "The foundation of authority is laid firstly in the free consent of people," end quote, he pronounced from the pulpit. And in 1639, he drafted the Fundamental Orders governing Windsor, Hartford, and Wethersfield, the first charter government in the New World that did not appeal to the authority of a king for its basis in justice. Reverend John Wise of Massachusetts would preach and protest in 1687 against the imposition of taxation without representation. President Calvin Coolidge would later praise Reverend John Wise as an inspiration of the Declaration of Independence. One should observe that the positions of Hooker preceded Thomas Hobbes' theoretical writing on consent in Leviathan by more than 11 years, and John Locke's theoretical writing on consent in two treatises by 50 years. Should anyone tell you the foundations of American notions of consent were dreamed up by the theoricians or first came to mind in 1776, correct them. Theory backfilled the practice, an ethos that had taken root and was growing in America from the very start. By the time the American Revolution rolled up on the English, Americans had been thinking about government and justice and terms of justice for more than 100 years. The Declaration of Independence reiterated and memorialized this, stating, quote, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. But consent requires renewal, and this implied that the practice of the colonists of electing their representatives would continue under the new forms of government of the new nation. Every election is a reflection of the principle of consent, which is not just compatible with consent, but a microcosm of a broader conception of the universe. God chooses us. We choose our form of government. We choose to renew it through amendment of its form. We choose our representatives in our form of government. This essay was written by J. Eric Wise, and he is a partner in the law firm of Alston and Bird. I am Janine Turner, founder of Constituting America. I and Kathy Gillespie, Constituting America's CEO, thank you for joining us for our 13th annual 90-day study. Our annual studies are entitled 90 plus 90 equals 180. History holds the key to the future because history does hold the key to the future, or as Shakespeare said, the past is prologue. Join us tomorrow. Right back here, same bat channel, same bat time for those of you who are as old as I and watched Batman, the TV show. Don't forget to check out our essays on American exceptionalism. It's our study from last year. If you go to the constitutingamerica.org and scroll down, you'll see the studies, and you'll see a little red button that says American Exceptionalism Study. Really good, so that we have 90 days of 90 tools in our toolbox so that we can have a really good civil civic conversation about why America is exceptional. Have a great day. We thank Amanda Hughes for championing these wonderful studies and for Bobby Rodriguez for editing these wonderful essays and sending them out there into the universe. Have a wonderful day.